Live from Bryant-Denny Stadium, it's the Tighter Insider Signing Day Special on WVUA 23.
That process involved way more than just football. It involved family, it involved relationship building. It involved, of course football, but building relationships with the people and just knowing that when you get there, it's not all about football. You have to develop yourself as a man and do your things in the classroom before you can even touch the playing field.
And more from Henry Ruggs III, the talented wide receiver out of Robert E. Lee High School in Montgomery, coming up. But first, we'd like to welcome you into the Tighter Insider Signing Day Special, brought to you by Alpha Insurance. Alongside Rodney Orr from TighterInsider.com and Tighter Insider TV, I'm Gary Harris. We're live inside the zone right here at Bryant-Denny Stadium, and we've got a full hour of Signing Day news, Rodney, and analysis. In about a half an hour, Alabama head coach Nick Saban will take to the podium to discuss his 2017 class. We'll go live to the Malmore Athletic Complex for Coach Saban's press conference as soon as it all gets started. But until then, we've got a lot to go over, obviously. We'll actually start with yesterday, Rodney. One commitment coming out of Monroe, Louisiana. Defensive lineman Fedarian Mathis is an unconventional signing ceremony that we saw. He was at the graveside of his friend who passed away in 2015, but yesterday he committed to the Crimson Tide. Mathis kicked off the holiday, because that's what National Signing Day is, a day early. Rodney, what are your thoughts on this big lineman, defensive lineman out of Neville High School there in Monroe, Louisiana?
Well, I think obviously he's one of the best defensive linemen in the country. He's at a high-need position. Alabama certainly needed to get defensive linemen, interior defensive linemen especially. You look at him, he's a big physical guy, Gary, but the thing I like most about him is that he has a really great mindset in terms of he's very aggressive, he's a very hard worker, he's a blue-collar guy. He's a guy that's going to give you 110% on and off the field.
Yeah, and it's really a big position for need. You don't say that too often about Alabama because they're so stockpiled, but defensive line is an area where they're looking for some help. Don't know if he'll, provide a contribution right off the bat, but he has a chance to physically.
Well, no question, especially given Alabama's circumstances on the defensive line, needing depth. There's no doubt about that. And, again, he is a very talented guy. He can run well. He's big. He's physical. And I think, again, I go back to what I said earlier, the big key for him is he has all those tools, but he has the right mindset to go with it.
And amazingly, Rodney, his commitment wasn't the only one at a cemetery. You heard Ruggs talk about his commitment at the top of the show. He also released a video on AL.com, also recognizing a friend that passed away.
He always told me, I will do something great. I will be something great. My name is Henry Ruggs III. This is for you, Rod.
Ruggs honoring his friend Rod Scott, who passed away last spring in a car accident. And I think it's great that these young men remember their friends who've passed away. But for Henry Ruggs III, this is a huge pickup for Alabama. An in-state guy, explosive wide receiver who can also return kicks and punts. Electric is the best way to describe this young man. And he hasn't played football for very long. He's really a basketball player. But talk about Ruggs and what he means for this class.
Watch him right here, 91 yards, untouched. Gary, I think you said it. He took it 91 yards in 10 seconds. And that's how quickly he can turn a game around. This is on a big stage here. All-Star game, Alabama-Mississippi High School All-Star game. Then in the Under Armour, or rather the Army All-American game in early January, he made some huge plays in that game. He's just a playmaker. Anytime this guy has the ball in his hands, he's a threat to go all the way, not just as a receiver, but also as a kick returner.
Yeah, really a big pickup for Alabama because it came down to Alabama and Florida State, and as late as last night, Rod, you were hearing it might be FSU, but Bama closed the deal, and boy, that's big. There was some more drama, though, late in the recruiting process, in addition to Ruggs, even though he came to Alabama. Talk about serious drama, Rodney. Today there was a roller coaster ride for Sebastian River, Florida High School defensive lineman Jerez Parks. Parks had a signing day ceremony scheduled, but then he had to cancel it in tears. And then Bleacher Report released the following video a short time later.
Dear Mom, God has blessed me with an amazing mother and an abundance of talent. I hope to never let you down. Without you, none of this would be possible. This college decision has been tough, but this journey has opened my eyes and my heart. I love you, Mom. I'm ready for the next step.
Next stop, Bama. Roll Tide, baby.
Really well done video there in Paris, but not so fast, because this situation was all over the place this morning. Would he sign with Alabama? Would he not? Would he sign with someone else? It looks like indeed he's coming to Alabama, Rodney. We're not sure when, though.
Yeah. Committed is what is called a gray shirt, which would mean he would enter in January of 2018. He would sit out next fall, but there is a possibility, Gary, if something were to happen to one of the other signees, that he could come in, be a part of this class in June. He's an outstanding talent. You know what's amazing about this? Jerez Parks is one of the top 100 players in the country.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy's extremely talented. There have been recruiting classes in the past around here. He would have been one of the marquee guys, and he certainly is a marquee guy. Not saying he's not this time, but you certainly wouldn't have taken him as gray shirt. This guy's a big playmaker. There you see him. Makes plays all over the field. I think when you look at him, he's about 6'4", 255. He's a guy that, as he continues to mature and develop, he could grow into a defensive end.
Yeah, whether he's here now or later, he's got a chance to be an outstanding player. Possibly a gray shirt, but maybe not. We shall see. All right, you talk about needing defensive linemen. The best in the state of Alabama is LeBron Ray out of James Clemens High School in Madison. He committed to the Tide this afternoon. Big get for Alabama after losing out on Aubrey Solomon. This is the #1 defensive lineman in the state. Your take on LeBron Ray?
A huge pickup again at the need position, defensive line. And you look at LeBron Ray, he's got all the athletic tools. He's long, he's quick, he's fast. There you see him chasing down a little running back, and he's got all the tools. But you look at his frame, that's what I like the most. He's about 255, 260 right now, Gary. About the same size Jonathan Allen was when he signed with Alabama out of high school. He's going to put on a lot of weight and get a lot bigger. Yeah, we mentioned Mathis having a chance to play early. Is this another guy that could come in and see time as a true freshman, you think? Oh, certainly. I think when you look at the tools that he has along with Alabama's, again, their need up front defensively, he could make an impact. It's up to him. In fact, when you look at him again physically, I think he's going to be a lot bigger by the time he gets here in June. But as he continues to develop physically, he's really going to be tough. Florida and Tennessee battle, but Alabama, the home state school, comes up big with LeBron Ray. All right, this afternoon, in fact, about an hour ago, Louisiana wide receiver Devontae Smith chose the Tide over guess who? LSU, another Louisiana product coming to Tuscaloosa. And we talked about Ruggs already. You got Jerry Jeudy and Tyrell Shavers as well. This is another kid that can fly and can really run routes, has good hands, maybe needs to put on a little weight, but big-time wide receiver. Yep, he definitely needs to put on weight. He's only around 160, 165, but, you know, Gary, he can run the routes. He's very smooth. He's very fluid. He can make plays down the field, go up and get the ball, as you just saw him right there. One of the top wide receivers in the country. I know most people consider him, some people consider him a five-star talent. So, again, he's been a guy that has been heavily recruited by schools all around the country. Well, out of the targets from today, the only one Alabama missed out on was Aubrey Solomon. They got the rest of these guys. And once again, the Crimson Tide recruiting train chugs along full steam ahead. All right, a late push for the Crimson Tide, but the class was already strong heading into the day. We'll have more on the players already here coming up later in the program. But let's look at how Alabama ranks as a team coming off these late commitments. And Rodney, it's strong again. Hey, can you say #1 across the board, buddy? I mean, there's really not another option, to be quite honest with you, Gary. And again, there were some outstanding recruiting classes, but it was clear that Alabama dominated. When you look at out of the ESPN top 300, I think Alabama got, what, 21? Yeah. It's amazing. You know, Florida State had some great runs. Miami, way back in the day, Notre Dame, Texas, Oklahoma. But have we ever seen a run in recruiting like we're seeing right now from Alabama in your memory? Boy, I tell you what, Notre Dame used to dominate in the 70s. I'm not sure I've seen one like this. Wow, this is something else. All right,
LeBron Ray and Henry Ruggs aren't the only in-state signees. Coming up, we'll have more on the other players from inside the state of Alabama that will be putting on the crimson and white. You're watching Tider Insider TV's Signing Day Special, live from the Zone in Bryant-Denny Stadium at the Red Elephant Club meeting. We'll be back with more right after this short timeout.
To be honest, I think it was just the best fit for me. You know, they got the position, you know, and they need them up for my position, and certain things that, you know, they have that I really want.
And you're looking live inside the Zone at Bryant-Denny Stadium. The Red Elephant Club meeting underway, and we are right here with you right now. And welcome back to Tider Insider Signing Day Special alongside Rodney Orr. I'm Gary Harris. There you heard from LeBron Ray, a big defensive lineman out of Madison, Alabama. Another in-state signee for the Crimson Tide was Brian Robinson from right here in Tuscaloosa, Rodney. Here's what the Hillcrest running back had to say about joining his hometown Crimson Tide.
I'll fit like right in, like as soon as I get in, because like it's just about the work you put in, you know, just competition. That it's going to be fun competing against those guys, you know, clearly the best guys in the nation. So, you know, I feel like I am one of those guys. So, you know, it'll be fun competing with those guys, you know, every day.
And here's a look at in-state signees. Rodney, again, Alabama recruits nationally, but the one thing that you like about Alabama, when they take an in-state guy, he's a top-tier guy. Not just in the state, but in the country.
Yeah. Notice how that you had a couple of teammates, Kareem McDonald and LeBron Ray Bros from James Clemens High School up there in Madison, Kendall Randolph and Bob Jones, all those guys grew up together. A lot of prospects in that area of the state, Gary. You look here at Tuscaloosa, you mentioned Brian Robinson. Is there a guy more unsung in this class for a talented guy that's a four-star recruit? You don't hear his name much. Henry Ruggs, we've talked about him, a tremendous talent. There's another one, Tredarius Townsend from a small school in Tanner. Gary, this guy can fly.
Yeah, great athlete.
He is a tremendous athlete with a lot of versatility. Could play on offense or defense.
So not a huge in-state class in terms of quantity, but high in quality. Another nice crop of talent from inside the state of Alabama. Let's again discuss Brian Robinson a little bit more, because as you said, unselfish team guy, committed back in 2015 and stuck with it. Even with Najee Harris, who some say is the top running back in the country, this guy never wavered, and that speaks high of his character and of his willingness to compete.
Yeah, look at him. He's 225 pounds, Gary, and you can see he can even get bigger. He's a guy that runs with a lot of power. You know, certainly one of the most productive running backs to ever play at Hillcrest High School, and a guy that was not intimidated, as you mentioned. I really like him. He has ability to make moves in the open field. Reminds you a little bit T.J. Yeldon.
Yeah, he does a little bit. Also from in-state up at Bob Jones High School in Madison, the offensive lineman Kendall Randolph, his older brother Levi, played basketball here. This is one of those offensive tackles that's high on athletic ability, really quick feet guy.
Yeah, and versatility. He could play possibly inside and outside at the interior positions as well as the tackle spots. Very athletic. You talked about that. That's probably what his forte is right now, is his athleticism, his ability as a pass blocker. As he continues to develop, he'll become much better as a run blocker.
And LeBron Ray's high school teammate at James Clemens in Madison, Kyrie McDonald, early enrollee at safety. I mean, this guy was sold on Alabama. He said, hey, Nick Saban offers you, you don't say no.
Well, when you look at Kareem McDonald, if you watch his tape, Gary, the one thing that stands out about him, he is a football player. He makes a lot of plays. He may not be the fastest guy. He reminds me a lot of Javier Arenas, probably not as fast as Javier was, but he makes plays all over the field. There you see him returning that interception. He blocks kicks. He picks up loose balls, returns them for touchdowns, just makes every kind of play imaginable. So he's a guy that I consider just a natural football player.
What about the linebacker from Central Phoenix City, Markel Benton? Kind of got lost in the shuffle a little bit. Some talk that he might not be a part of this class because of academics, but indeed he did sign today. And this is a guy now that has a super upside, great talent, physical kid that can run.
No question about that, Gary. And I think when you look at him, I thought he had a better senior year early on. And I think when you look at him, he's a guy that as he comes in and continues to develop, he's going to be certainly, you can versatile. You can play him inside. You can play him outside on third downs, let him rush the passer. And in a very strong year, really, for linebackers in the state, he was certainly among the best.
And Tredarius Townsend, we mentioned, from Tanner High School, small school, big-time athletic talent.
Look at him. I mean, that's legit speed right there, Gary. I mean, when you look at Tredarius Townsend, he's a guy, when he has the ball in his hands, he can make plays as a high school quarterback, but 4.4 speed, legit. When he gets in the open field, he's gone. I think probably they may try him at slot receiver initially. Could possibly see him on defense, but I think initially you'll see him as a slot receiver.
Well, Townsend and McDonald are early enrollees along with 2 junior college transfers, Isaiah Buggs and Elliott Baker. Buggs was widely regarded as one of the top defensive linemen at the JUCO level, and Baker was rated by some as the top junior college offensive tackle. So they could be big contributors right off the bat. Let's start with Buggs. This is a guy, when he came out of Ruston, Louisiana, everybody had him ticketed to go to LSU once he left Gulf Coast Community College. Not so fast. Alabama got in there, recruited him hard, and you see him, number 9 there. This is a grown man.
He's a difference maker. He's a difference maker. He's a guy that can come in next year and make a huge difference on the defensive line. And you mentioned it, Gary. He was very heavily recruited. LSU thought that they would eventually get him, but I think the key was when Les Miles was fired, that really gave Alabama sort of an avenue to get in and ultimately sway Isaiah Buggs. And again, I think this is maybe one of the top 2 or 3 pickups in this class.
Yeah, don't be surprised if he's starting against Florida State September 2nd in Atlanta. And in Elliott Baker, you get an offensive tackle following the likes of James Carpenter, Dominic Jackson. There have been others that have come in from the junior college ranks. Usually when Alabama gets a JUCO offensive tackle, he pans out.
He does, and you know, he's originally from San Francisco, so he went to school there at City College of San Francisco, played high school ball there, now coming all the way across country because he really loved Alabama's tradition. And when you look at him, he's another guy that's an athletic tackle. He played both sides. He flip-flopped, played right and left tackle, so he's accustomed to doing that, brings a lot of versatility. And he'll compete this spring, Gary, because they're going to have an open spot there with Cam Robinson leaving, depending on how they do it. If they move Jonah Williams to left tackle, he could compete at the right tackle spot, but there's going to be a tackle position that will be open.
Yeah, Leon Brown, another one of those guys from JUCO that I didn't mention that played well at Alabama. So Alabama's early enrollees could have made a top 5 class by themselves, probably. Coming up, we'll discuss the players already on campus, including Parade Magazine's Player of the Year, linebacker Dylan Moses. Plus, we'll go live to the Malmore Athletic Complex for Nick Saban's signing day press conference inside the Naylor Stone Media Room. Stay tuned to WVUA 23. Our Tider Insider Signing Day Special brought to you by Alpha Insurance. We'll return right after this. It was a battle between Alabama and Michigan, but Najee Harris finally ended the suspense last month when he arrived in Tuscaloosa and enrolled at the University of Alabama, the top recruit in the nation, according to Rivals.com. This is video posted by AL.com. Harris and another early enrollee, Tua Tagovailoa, at the Birmingham Airport. The saga finally complete. And welcome back. I'm Gary Harris with Rodney Orr. This is the Tider Insider Signing Day Special live from inside the zone at Bryant-Denny Stadium. Let's talk about these early enrollees. Rodney, an incredibly talented class. We've already touched on Kyrie McDonald and Tredarius Townsend and Isaiah Buggs and Elliott Baker. But if you look at the rest of the group, top 10 players, 5-star players, National High School Players of the Year, just an immensely talented group that will be here for spring football. And let's start with the aforementioned Najee Harris.
Yeah, and again, he's coming into a position, Gary, where there's a lot of crowded, top-notch running backs, but you look at Najee Harris, this guy is, there's a reason why they say he might be one of the top 3 or 4 running backs to come out over the last 5 or 6, 7 years. Just a dynamite player, great size. There you see his balance, his athletic ability. You know, again, I go back to what I said earlier about a few of the other players that Alabama has signed in this class. You know, really what sets Najee Harris apart, he has the great talent, but he has the want to. I mean, this guy constantly is in the weight room trying to better himself, and that's really what this program's been built off of. Najee Harris has that kind of mentality.
Yeah, he should be a force on the offensive side of the ball. On the defensive side of the ball, a guy we've been hearing about since the 8th grade, Dylan Moses, the Parade Magazine Player of the Year. Another guy that we thought for a long time would wind up at LSU. He's from Baton Rouge, even though he finished up at IMG Academy down in Florida in Bradenton. But, you know, Alabama just stayed consistent. He was sold by Nick Saban, and now he's already enrolled here and looking to make an impact as a true freshman on defense.
Yeah, he's a guy, Gary, you look at him, he could play the Mike linebacker, the inside linebacker spot, and he's it reads plays, diagnoses them very well, but he's a tremendous athlete. There's no doubt about that. That's one of his fortes is his speed. He's a 4'5" guy at 6'2", 230 pounds, and just a tremendous athlete. And I think when you look at Alabama's need for inside linebackers, this is a big pickup, obviously.
Back to offense. We already talked about the two receivers today, Henry Ruggs III and Devontae Smith, but you could argue that Jerry Jeudy is possibly the number one wide receiver in the country.
Yeah,
and he's already enrolled.
That move there is a little Calvin Ridley-ish. And talking to his high school coach down at Deerfield Beach, he also coached Calvin Ridley in high school. That's who he compares Jerry Jeudy to. Very, very fluid player. Obviously has great moves in the open field. He's a game breaker and a really smooth route runner.
Of course, you can have all the skill players that you want, but you got to have the big uglies to block up front. That's where games are still won in the trenches in the SEC. And Alex Leatherwood from Pensacola, Florida, is, I say this in a good way, he's a monster.
Yeah, no doubt about it. He came in and went through the bowl practices, Gary, and when he walked in the facility, I mean, you're like, this guy looks NFL ready physically right now at about 6'5", 325, 330 pounds. I really think he could possibly be this year's version of Jonah Williams. And what I mean by that, a true freshman offensive lineman that could come in and legitimately compete after going through spring practice at a starting spot. He's a guy that could play in the interior spots, maybe at right guard where Alabama was a little unsettled this year. He could compete at either one of the tackle spots. So, again, this guy, he deserves all the accolades.
Of course, you got to get quarterbacks. Tua Tagovailoa out of Honolulu, Hawaii. Everybody that's met this guy's impressed, not just with his physical tools, which are numerous, but the kind of character, the kind of smarts. He's a lefty, but this young man has got the tools.
When you look at him, Gary, you think, okay, here's a guy that's extremely talented. He could go to just about any school he wanted to go to. Alabama plays a true freshman quarterback last year, Jalen Hurts. Did not intimidate him. He's not intimidated by the competition, did not budge on his commitment, stuck to it since early May, and a guy that is really a strong leader. I think he played a great role in terms of helping build this class with his relationships with some of the other players, notably Najee Harris. So this guy brings a lot of leadership, and I think given the fact that he's going through spring practice, he's certainly going to push Jalen Hurts. I'm not predicting that he could start as a true freshman, but I think he could certainly make a contribution.
Running down Bama's early enrollees, we already showed you three great wide receivers, one of whom Jerry Jeudy's enrolled. So is Terrell Shavers. Tua Tagovailoa or Jalen Hurts get in trouble, why not just throw it up to a guy that's 6'6" and say, go get it, big fella?
It's amazing. Terrell Shavers out of Louisville, Texas, there you see him right there. Watch his speed, Gary. He's a great athlete. He can go up high and make catches, has a great vertical, has tremendous hands, 6'6", 200 pounds. Watch this. He goes up over DBs routinely and pulls the ball down. But not only that, they've actually lined him up at quarterback. You ought to see him run the zone read. Tells you a little bit about his athleticism, some of the runs that he made from out there. And you know what? With this height, Gary, he could gain, no telling how much weight, put on weight, eventually become an O.J. Howard type player. You never really know how a guy is going to develop over the course of his career.
Indeed, and O.J. Howard is probably going to be a first-round draft pick. You love tight ends that, of course, have to block, but can also get downfield and catch the football. Major Tennyson, another Texan, is one of those guys.
He really is, and an athletic player. Was a guy that grew up a Texas fan, and a lot of people thought that he would end up there, but he committed to Alabama after originally being committed to Texas, and he's a guy that's really versatile. He's going to have to get a little bit bigger, but you look at some of the guys that they've brought in over the last couple of years, he kind of fits in that mold. I really like Major Tennyson. I think he's going to be a guy that here in the spring will be able to compete, develop, and position himself maybe to play next year.
You saw that shot just a moment ago at the Mount Ware Athletic Complex. As soon as Nick Saban arrives and takes the podium, we will go to him. Regardless of what we're talking about, he trumps me and Rodney. Not many people do, but Coach Saban does. All right, that's a look at the early enrollees at the skill positions. Of course, Cole Mazza was a guy we didn't talk much about because he never made a mistake. All right, here's Saban. Let's go to Nick Saban. Saban is here.
We're obviously very excited about the 14 players who signed with us today and to join the 12 players who are already early enrolled here. I think this class is a class that we're very pleased with and proud of. This day is accumulation of a lot of hard work by a lot of people. It starts out, I think, with the entire team of people that we have here at Alabama, but most specifically, our coaching staff. I think that, this day is an accumulation of all the way back, in some cases, as far as 2 or 3 years, where you evaluate guys and start to develop relationships with them. And, our coaching staff did a phenomenal job in evaluation and in developing relationships and working hard to attract some of these guys here. And the team of people that we have here at the university who help us recruit, I think we can not give enough thanks for and let them know how much we appreciate what they do. Everybody from Dr. Bell, Bill Battle, speak to these guys when they come in on the weekends. We have great response in the university community from our professors and people who come out on Saturdays and have lunch and take these guys to their colleges. John Deaver and his staff and academic support do a phenomenal job of helping our players create value by graduating for themselves in the future. And the academic support program that we have, I think, is very important to a lot of these, young people. So a lot of people do a lot of hard work. It starts with our coaching staff and the people here that organize our recruiting, and everybody in this athletic department who works hard to make this happen. We obviously try to identify needs that we have each year, and I think that in this class we sort of hit every spot but one. We didn't really, we wanted to recruit at least one corner, maybe two. It just worked out that it didn't happen that way for us, but we feel like we got a couple really good safeties, got 4 really good linebackers, we got 3 good down guys on defense, some offensive linemen, 4 that are good, some really good skilled wide receivers, couple tight ends, couple good running backs, couple good quarterbacks, couple good specialists. So there's a lot of good players that are really good people. That are exactly the kind of young men that we'd like to attract to the University of Alabama and to our program. I know that everybody likes to go out there and look at all these rankings and ratings and all that, but it's just like I tell players in draft. It's not where you get drafted, it's what you do with your career and how you develop your career. Well, this is not about how you got rated coming out of high school. This is about being committed to doing all the things that we're going to do here to try to help you be successful as a person, as a student, and as a player. And how you develop in all those areas is certainly going to go a long way to determining what kind of career you have, how much success you have, and how you develop as a player. So, recruiting, personnel evaluation is not an exact science. Everyone that stands up here today, if you see a coach that stands up here today and says he had a bad recruiting day, let me know. Everybody's going to say they had a good day and things went well and they got what they needed. You never have a bad recruiting class and you never have a bad spring practice. So I think that everybody can make their own judgments, but our focus is going to be on what can we do to help these guys be successful as people, as students, and as players, and help them develop the kind of careers that's going to help them be more successful in life because they were involved in the program. So again, I would like to thank everybody that contributed to helping us put this class together. A lot of people in the university community, a lot of people in the athletic department, a lot of people on our staff, our coaches, their coaches' wives, a lot of people are involved in this, and we really appreciate everyone's efforts.
We'll start right over here, right there. I was wondering if you thought you met the needs along your defensive line class, or would you have liked to? I know you probably always want more players. Would you have liked to have more players there?
Well, we'd always like to have more players, but you got numbers issues. We're restricted by numbers. There's serious penalties for going over in terms of what your numbers are. It's a very difficult management to manage. We do not necessarily determine when guys are going to make decisions. So you got to try to take the best players that you can get at every position and hope that you can satisfy your needs by the players that you get at those particular positions. We're pleased with the 3 guys that we got, and I'd rather get quality players, and I think we got 3 quality players.
On the far side with Rayner.
What's the situation with kicker, one? And number 2, did you have any reservations after Cowan, the way his career ended in Florida? Linebacker.
Yeah, we did a significant amount of investigating in terms of what his character issues might have been relative to his team. We interviewed a lot of people in the school. We interviewed his coaches. We spent a significant amount of time with him. We evaluated how he's improved academically to try to make the choice and decision as to whether he was someone that we wanted to have involved in our program. And I think a lot of the players in this class really liked him in terms of their relationship with him, and we're looking forward to helping him be successful here. The kicking situation, I cannot comment on anyone who actually didn't sign an NLI here today. So I think we have someone, as you well know, that has expressed interest in coming to Alabama. We have a couple guys in the program now who have ability to kick. So we will take all those guys when the fall comes and determine who gives us the best opportunity to be successful at that position.
Just a few of your skill players. Najee Harris is one. What can he bring to the running back position? And also the 2 receivers you signed today in Ruggs and Smith. What type of players are they?
Well, Najee is a very good all-around player. I mean, he's one of the best players in the country according to a lot of people's evaluation. He's got great size. He's got great speed. He's very fluid and smooth athletically. He's very complete, has really good hands, good route runner, has special production as a player. We think that Henry Ruggs and Devontae Smith are both very explosive guys. We've had them in camp for a couple years. Very fast, very explosive. They played that way for their teams, and I think that whether they're punt returners, kickoff returners, wide receivers, running the ball some kind of way, these explosive type players are guys that we felt like we needed to add in this class, and we feel good about all 3 of these guys being those types of players.
Back on the other side with Michael. I know we talk about rankings and ratings, but it is, the headline in the news release you guys put out that this is the #1 class. How does that help the next class, those headlines? How does that build momentum in terms of just a reputation for recruiting around here?
Well, I think that we don't look at it like that, and I don't know how we're rated. I didn't know how many of these guys where they were rated, how many stars they had. I don't know anything about that. We kind of evaluate the players like we're going to draft them and take the guys that meet the criterias and critical factors that we want at positions. I think to continue to do well in recruiting, I think you got to create the right atmosphere and environment to help players be successful in the program. You got to have good team chemistry and togetherness. You got to have good people in the program to attract good people. I think you got to do a great job of getting an early start in recruiting, which we try to do every year. I know I spent a significant amount of time on the phone today offering guys for next year so that we can get a good start. So I think that hopefully these guys will be able to contribute to the success of the program in the way they represent the program and the job that they do academically and how they play on the field, so that we can continue to have success and that future players will recognize those successes and want to be a part of the program.
In the middle with Alex.
I wanted to ask you about your offensive line guy. Obviously, you brought Leatherwood in prior, and just Kendrick today. Just what do you think about filling needs, especially on that offensive front?
Well, I really like the guys that we got. We took a junior college guy at both line positions, which gives you a little older, more mature guys. But the guys that we recruited as freshmen have size and athleticism to play the position. Alex Leatherwood has a lot of potential. He's big. We've had him in camp. We've worked with him in the past. Jedrick Wills, that we thought was one of the best guys at his position in the entire country, at least in our evaluation. We like the potential of, both other players that we have as offensive linemen. So we feel good about it. I mean, I think offensive line is a developmental position. So how these guys develop at that position, I think, is critical to how much they can contribute early on and how good they can be long term. And I think both of those things are very, very important. Randolph is a guy that has a lot of athleticism, great size, and I think we're hoping that he'll develop into something special.
Back up front here with
Kurt. Coach, you've got 2 quarterbacks in the class. One's here, and I understand the other one's coming in time for spring practice. And I wanted to, A, what is the importance of having the 2 quarterbacks since you only have Jalen back on scholarship? And 2, this is a sort of a new development on bringing the guys in early, but not as early.
Well, we have an academic circumstance here that allows us to bring guys in. We have several players who will take advantage of that, that maybe didn't quite get everything done when they needed to be able to get here and start the term in January. And I think it's critical for us and really good for us that because of the quarterback situation that we have, having a freshman starter and having the other players, leave the program thinking they wouldn't have a chance to compete in the future, that we got 2 young guys in here that we could develop in the spring. I think it's something that's very, very important to develop depth at that position.
Urban Meyer said today he likes to try to shoot for around 50% of his class, ideally being from in-state. With that in mind, do you ever set a certain mark and just the importance you have on getting in-state recruits? I know you have 7 out of 26 in this class.
Well, we would like to recruit as many guys as we can from our state. I think every state's a little bit different in terms of numbers of players that they have and numbers of schools that they have that are recruiting those players. So, Ohio State doesn't have another school in the state that's recruiting the players relative to the Big Ten. We would like to get as many Alabama players as we possibly can. We've had some great players from the state of Alabama: Julio Jones, Mark Barron, C.J. Mosley, Fluker. I mean, we've had a lot of great ones. Reggie Ragland. I mean, it goes on and on and on. So we want to continue to try to get as many players from our state as we possibly can. It's very competitive in our state to get players, and we're going to continue to do the best that we can. We don't necessarily put a number on it. We just want to get the best players in our state and get every one of them that we can get.
You mentioned Ohio State not having any other Big Ten schools in the state. Louisiana doesn't have any other SEC schools, but you guys have done a pretty good job of getting players out of there. What has kind of worked well for you guys recruiting that area recently?
Well, Louisiana has a lot of good programs. They have a lot of good players. I think at one time, one of the reasons that I was interested in going there when I was in the NFL, they did some survey on how many players per capita each state has relative to the NFL, and Louisiana was like 4th or something on the list of number of players. So I'm saying, well, there must be a lot of players in Louisiana, and I think there are. And I think we're fortunate. We have been fortunate to get a lot of players in the past who have had success here, whether it's Landon Collins, Eddie Lacy, Tim Williams. We've had a lot of players. Cam Robinson. We've got a few players on our team right now that make a significant contribution from Louisiana. So, and I think when players see other players maybe leave the state and have success, it's something that they see as a place where they might go and have success themselves. One of the things I mentioned Landon Collins, but I was just flipping channels the other day. I wasn't even watching the Pro Bowl, but I just happened to hit the Pro Bowl when they were talking about Landon Collins and Ha-Ha, the 2 starting safeties for the NFC. I mean, that made me feel really good that here we got 2 guys that played together here that are now starting in the Pro Bowl there. They're not just starting for their team, they're starting in Pro Bowl.
Up front here, front row in the gray shirt.
Hey, Nick. Obviously, the defensive back, you mentioned, cornerbacks were sort of a bit of a miss in this class, but you signed guys who've played multiple spots in high school, and just like with the quarterbacks, all three, once that mini-mester is underway, will be on campus. Any flexibility with those three guys, McDonald, McKinney, Daniel Wright?
Well, there's flexibility with a lot of guys that are skill guys, and I think that Cyrus Jones came here and played 1 year at receiver and ended up being a pretty good defensive back that got drafted in the second round. So I think this is a little bit of a universal problem. I know when I was calling around to get draft grades on Marlon and Ardarius and Cam, a lot of the general managers kept asking me questions about why aren't there more defensive players? Why aren't there more defensive skill players? It doesn't seem like there's as many defensive players for us to draft as there used to be. And I think, part of that goes back to style of play, that football has changed. When I played football, we played one receiver or two receivers. And when we put two receivers in the game, it was like we were in full mode passing. This is when I was in high school. All right? So now, and when I started coaching, the most people put were two receivers. When I was at Michigan State as a defensive coordinator, we played Iowa. We tried to play nickel. They never even put three receivers ever in the game. All right, so now we are playing nickel over 80% of the time because everybody on offense is playing 3 and 4 wide receivers because the spread has had that kind of impact. The quarterback position has changed in terms of the dynamic of the kind of player who plays quarterback because of the spread. People are looking for athletic guys to run. So where we used to have 2 guys playing on offense in skill positions, now you got a quarterback, a running back, and 4 receivers. Well, 3 of those guys used to play defense. I'm talking about play defense coming up when they were in junior high, coming up in high school and all that. So there's more skill guys on offense, just like in the draft. Probably the number 1 position that has the greatest number of players to choose from is receiver. When we're out there recruiting, there's a lot of receivers that are out there to recruit. It's harder to find defensive players. Now, if I was a high school coach, I would put my best players on offense. Best athletes on my team, I would give them the ball and score points. I wouldn't play them on defense. All right, I would play them where they could get the ball and score points. So sometimes you got to look at it like maybe this guy's not playing the position that he could play. All right, so maybe he'll end up playing something else like Cyrus Jones did here. And we may have to look at some guys on our team like that. But I can't say who right now until they get here we would do anything like that with.
We'll wrap up here with John Zena.
Sorry to kind of go off topic here, but you've known Coach Belichick a long time and everything. I'm wondering what makes him, in your mind, what qualities make him so successful over such a sustained period of time, which is obviously hard to do.
Yeah, this is a tough one for me in this Super Bowl. Dan Quinn coached for me for 2 years at Miami as a defensive line coach, and Bill and I have been friends forever. We got a couple players playing for Atlanta that are pretty significant contributors, and we got some guys playing for New England that are pretty significant contributors. We got guys on practice squads, and I usually, in the NFL games, I just root for our guys. Well, it's kind of hard to figure out who our guys are in this one, but to answer your question, Bill Belichick is successful because he's very bright, probably the most organized person that I have ever been around when it comes to football knowledge and how to sort of go through a process of things, whether it's how you draft players, how you find players, how you bring players to the team, how you develop players, how you systematically put a sound system together on offense, defense, and special teams, the demands that he puts on the people that work for him to get the very best out of them and to get the very best out of the players. He probably does it as well as anybody, and I think his record shows that. I probably learned more in the 4 years that I was with him, maybe than at any other time in my career. And I thought I knew something when I was with him. I'd been a coordinator in college. I'd been a head coach in college. I coached 2 years in the NFL when I hooked up with him. So I thought I knew something. and really found out that I was just in a position to really learn a lot. And that time in Cleveland probably helped me as much as any in developing the kind of philosophy and organizations that have helped us be successful through the years. And you can contribute a lot of it to Bill Belichick. All right, thank you.
Coach Saban with a lot to say today, even talking about the Super Bowl at a recruiting signing day press conference. All right, when we come back, we'll kind of analyze what Coach Saban had to say. He admitted they would have liked to have gotten a corner, but hard to find those guys. This is the Tider Insider TV signing day special, live from inside the zone at Bryant-Denny Stadium, presented by Alpha Insurance. We're back after this. And welcome back to our Tider Insider signing day special, brought to you by Buffalo Rock, bottlers of Pepsi products, one of our sponsors along with Alpha Insurance, and of course also Aquafina water. So we're taking a break from the Pepsi and enjoying some crystal clear Aquafina water, courtesy of Buffalo Rock. Always great to have them and Pepsi with us on our Tider Insider shows, and of course with us on the recruiting signing day Tider Insider special as well. All right, Nick Saban had a lot to say, Rodney. Just what did you take away?
Well, obviously he's very pleased with this recruiting class, I think, and rightfully so. Again, we talked about maybe what they missed. You know, they had a corner committed, junior college cornerback Javonte Dean, who decommitted. But there at the end, you knew that Alabama was looking for some corners. It was kind of late in the process. A couple of guys that they came really close on that decided to stick with schools either they were considering or that they were committed to. So, again, I think Alabama – next year, when you start looking forward, he talked about offering players for next year. He talked about offering a lot of players. Defensive line will certainly be a priority again. And I think cornerback in the secondary will be a high priority.
All right, before we wrap up the show, we were discussing the early enrollees. Got to all of them. We were about to talk about Thomas Fletcher, who will step in as long snapper to replace Cole Mazza. Mazza was great for 4 years. Alabama coaches feel like Fletcher can be the same kind of guy.
You know what? Some people think actually Thomas Fletcher may be one of the best long snappers that's come around in a long time. So he's a really talented guy. He had a lot of offers. And I know when you rate these guys, he's only a 2-star, but he's probably a 5-star long snapper.
Yeah, and you know, they're harder to find than kickers.
Yes, they are.
Because there's a lot more people that kick and play soccer. You don't find a lot of people that grow up wanting to snap. Hard to find good ones. That's a big pickup. All right, some of the other signees from today. Let's start with the other quarterback. In addition to Tonga Vailoa, Matt Jones out of the Bow School. He's a highly recruited young man in his own right.
Yeah, you know, you say, not you, but anyone says the other quarterback. Yeah. You know, this guy's really not the other quarterback because he's really good. I think when you look at Mac Jones, watching him just throw the ball, Gary, he kind of reminds me physically a little bit in the way he throws the ball of A.J. McCarron, but he really can move around well. He can make plays with his feet. In fact, in the USA-Canada All-Star game, I think it was last week, he had a 47-yard touchdown run where he basically ran away from the secondary. So he's a guy that can keep plays alive with his feet, moves around really well. I think when you look at him, he's a quarterback.
All right, Rodney, we're not going to have time to run down all these other guys, so I'm just going to mention the other signees in this class. Jedrick Wills, the offensive lineman from Kentucky. Vandarius Kalman, linebacker from Florida. Daniel Wright, safety from Florida. Chris Allen, linebacker from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Kedrick James, big tight end from Waco, Texas. Outstanding prospect. Xavier McKinney, safety out of Georgia, and Bulivas, the kicker from Louisiana, is going to be a blue shirt that should be ready to go in the fall. So this is a highly rated class. As we take a look at the SEC recruiting classes, Rodney, of course, obviously Alabama leads the way at number 1, and that's not just in the SEC but nationally as well. But a lot of competition for players in the SEC, but Alabama heads it up. Kirby Smart in Georgia making a big push as well. Rodney, just a real quick thought. Another signing day is come and gone, but another good one for Alabama.
Well, I think the thing here, the amazing thing is really you don't ever think that they can top the last one,
and they
might have just done it.
All right, our apparel provided by the Locker Room, downtown Tuscaloosa, home of the original elephant wear. Visit them in person or shop online. The Locker Room has some great looking clothes. The original elephant wear, among them Rodney's suit is from there. My tie and shirt are from there. Check them out online or in the store. All right, that is going to do it for our Tider Insider Signing Day special. Thanks to Alpha Insurance, to Buffalo Rock, and to the Locker Room. For Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris. A reminder, the news is coming up right after this show at 4:30. Then at 5 o'clock, we'll have all the local West Alabama signees for you. Then more Alabama recruiting tonight at 6 and 10. Have a great day and we'll talk to you again soon on Tider Insider TV. So long.